Well, welcome to another session of Walk Through Voices. We've launched into our Gospels Challenge, and maybe you've already started reading with us during the month of October, reading through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Maybe you're just hearing about this for the first time right now. It's still early in October, and I'd encourage you just to jump in. There's reading schedule posted down below. There's a link that will take you to our Gospels Challenge, and join the adventure with us. During this first week or so, we're reading through the Gospel of Matthew, and there's so much we could talk about today, but there's one specific story that I want us to focus in on. You know, Matthew was a Jew who wrote to a Jewish audience, and so he packs his gospel with quotes and allusions to the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, and he tells many stories, and he captures a lot of the teaching of Jesus. That's true, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, that we refer to as the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus talks on many practical subjects. It's interesting then that gets followed up with chapter 8, comes right after 5, 6, and 7. And in 8, there's not much teaching. It's mostly miracles. It's action. It's the healing of a leper. It's the centurion who's concerned about his servant's faith. A centurion, that would have been a Roman soldier. And we get this discovery that though he's writing to Jews, even the Romans are within the scope of Jesus' love and concern. That would have been a surprise to a lot of people. There's all these miracles taking place. Jesus also heals a storm. He shows he's got authority over nature. He also casts a demon out of a man. Two men that he heals from demons. It just seems every paragraph that you look at, there's a new miracle. We flip the page to chapter 9, and there's this wonderful story of Jesus healing a paralyzed man. But again, the religious leaders, the Pharisees especially, they're upset by what he's doing and when he's doing it. It's like they just don't quite get it and understand the true nature of his mission. We call them the Gospels. The name Gospel means good news. But who's the good news for? A lot of that really gets cleared up in chapter 9, beginning in verse 9. And those are the verses I want us to just look at briefly right now. It says in Matthew 9:9, Jesus passed on from there, and he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. This is Matthew sitting at the tax booth. He's a tax collector. I don't know what your feelings are about you. How eager would you be to hang out with an IRS agent? That's easy for us to look at that. This is way more extreme than that. This would have been a Jewish individual who was hired by the Romans. It'll be much easier if he collects the taxes from his own people. But mostly the tax collectors were viewed as turncoats, that they had betrayed their own people. And corruption was rampant. The Romans, as long as we get what comes to us, whatever extra you can charge, that's your compensation. And so Matthew was viewed with a whole lot of suspicion, a whole lot of anger, even hatred. Interesting that Jesus says to him the exact same thing that he says to Peter and his brother Andrew. He simply says, "Follow me." The good news of the gospel is that it is open to all people, and that's going to get expanded fully in the book of Acts. But right here in the first gospel written to folks from a Jewish background, yes, loaded with Hebrew Scriptures, yes, loaded with teaching, but make no mistake, Matthew's trying to send a message. This is for everybody. Well, verse 10, as Jesus reclined at the table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. Something about Jesus seems to radiate acceptance, openness, love for people. And they're there, and when the Pharisees in verse 11 saw this, they said to his disciples, they don't go to Jesus directly, they go, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Why is he hanging out with the wrong people? Why is he with unrighteous people?" The Pharisees viewed themselves as holy as a result, not just of trying to obey the law, but they even invented extra man-made laws. Why is he hanging out with people who are clearly outsiders to the plan of God? Notice the disciples don't get to answer that question. Jesus enters in, verse 12, he says, "But when he heard it," this is Jesus, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." I didn't think there were any righteous. There's not, because we're all unrighteous, the Bible says. We've all sinned. But those who believe they're righteous, those who trust in their own perfection, it's like their ears are closed to the good news of the gospel. But the great news of the gospel, and why we call this good news, is it's open. It's open. It's available to anybody. It's available to those who are rejected by society, by those who don't live up to the religious standards of even the leaders. It's open to people like you and like me, people just like Matthew, the tax collector, the rejected one. And Matthew ends up saying yes to this invitation. And in fact, this gospel bears his name. This is so encouraging that Jesus cares about all people. It's open and available to all of us. And so as you read through Matthew, as well as the other gospels, keep in mind, even though Matthew, originally written to folks from a Hebrew background, all people groups have always been on the heart of God, and that means me, and that means you. That's a message we're sharing. And a lot of times, the people most often to hearing it are the people who themselves and others view as the least worthy. That's why this gospel was included in the Bible. God bless you. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Walk Through Voices, and jump in and begin reading with us. Use the links at the bottom of the page, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.